Stay tuned for one of the most fascinating programs you'll ever hear as we explore the strange and mysterious world of the paranormal and UFOs. Welcome to the ParaNet Continuum, a weekly program dealing with extraordinary claims of the paranormal on Earth and beyond. Whether or not you believe in the paranormal, the controversies are real, and this program will try to get to the bottom of it. Your host is Michael Corbin, Director of ParaNet Information Services, a global communications network based near Denver, Colorado, dedicated to the investigation of parapsychology, futuristic science, and the UFO enigma. We invite you to keep an open mind as we discuss some of the most fascinating and strange subjects around. Now here's your host, Michael Corbin.
And good evening and welcome to this edition of the ParaNet Continuum, home of common sense, no nonsense, paranormal talk radio. Tonight we're going to have some fun, of course, but we're going to hear actual audio of a sighting that's being witnessed by police officers and an actual sound of a UFO as it was recorded by those police officers. My guest tonight is a UFO investigator, and we're going to talk about this event, and we're going to talk about other events that he is currently investigating. But first, the news. Of course, from our wacky file, and it's from The Onion, September the 18th, 1997. It's a startling headline. Clinton fires cabinet after watching X-Files. Trust no one, he says. From Washington, D.C., President Clinton fired the entire U.S. cabinet Monday following an episode of the popular television program X-Files he called disturbing. Last night, I learned that space aliens have infiltrated the highest ranks of the U.S. government, brainwashing an undetermined number of my top advisors, Clinton said. Now, in the interest of national safety, I have no choice but to fire all those who may be under the influence of these sinister beings. I guess he's going to have to fire himself. Immediately following the episode, which aired on Fox at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Sunday, the president called an emergency cabinet meeting during which every member categorically denied knowledge or involvement in an alien conspiracy plot. They refused to admit anything, Clinton said. They were obviously part of the cover-up. Doubtless, many people will find my story to be ridiculous, Clinton said. After all, even FBI agent Dana Scully, who has seen many such cases over the years, believed this to be the product of an overactive imagination. But I am convinced these aliens are real. How else can you explain the simultaneous disappearance of top-secret Gulf War documents from 3 different White House safes, all of which tested positive for traces of tetranitrohydroxylene G, a substance found only in the distant Beta Sirius system. And what about that Russian sailor stationed off the Alaska coast who died of massive cranial trauma, even though he showed no signs of sustaining a head wound? Now, Clinton has tried several times to contact Scully and her partner, Special Agent Fox Mulder, but has gotten no response. In fact, on 2 separate occasions, the president was told by officials at the FBI Academy at Quantico, Virginia, that no such agents even exist. Obviously, Clinton said someone in the FBI doesn't want to talk to Scully and Mulder. Someone very high up. They know I know too much. According to evidence gathered by Clinton while watching the hour-long program, in addition to controlling the minds of numerous cabinet members, the aliens also played a role in the JFK assassination. Clinton admitted, however, that the exact role they played in the assassination was unclear, as he got up to go to the bathroom during a commercial and came back late, missing a crucial segment of the show. Even more terrifying, however, is the fact that when Clinton checked his VCR, which he distinctly remembers setting to tape the show, he found the unit turned off and eerily flashing 12 o'clock. Someone or something, Clinton said, has the power to break into the Oval Office and turn off my VCR without any Secret Service agents noticing. Do you now begin to see what we're dealing with? The implications are staggering. At the end of last Sunday's episode, I stayed tuned for some scenes from next week's X-Files, which I firmly believe will be the thrilling conclusion of a special 2-part episode, Clinton said. And according to the previous voiceover narrator, nothing can prepare me for what will be revealed on the program. Okay. That's absolutely phony. I know it is, yes. Now let's get to some more serious stuff here. This is from the UFO Roundup from September the 21st. Editor Joseph Trainer reports MUFON, Iowa investigates Sioux City, Iowa sighting. It says MUFON, Iowa is currently investigating a UFO sighting that took place in a rural area near Sioux City, Iowa, 200 miles west of Des Moines, the night of August 7th, 97. 3 people were involved in the sighting, a 50-year-old woman, her 22-year-old son, and her 11-year-old grandson. At 9:30 p.m. on August 7th, the boys were driving home when the younger one spotted a triangular UFO in the sky. The first triangle was 500 feet away and about 200 feet in altitude. Beverly Trout, Iowa MUFON State Director, reported, and it moved parallel at about 20 miles per hour. The 60-foot triangle moved in a generally easterly direction for about 2 miles as the boys drove through some stone park, a heavily wooded area of hills, deep ravines, and winding roads. Eventually, it crossed the road just behind the vehicle and headed back to the west. When they turned onto the road leading to their farmhouse, a strange animal bumped into the car's passenger door. The boys described it as reminding them of a hyena. Now, arriving at home, the boys told their mother and grandmother that she responded that there were no such things as UFOs. Just then, Miss Trout added, the 11-year-old pointed to the southwest of their house, and there was another triangle about 300 feet in size, about 3/4 of a mile, and only 500 feet in altitude, moving very slowly. The UFO hovered for 15 minutes to the west of the house. The family noticed an amber-colored globe of light in the sky with an apparent size of a little less than a full moon, from which 3 globes emerged, darted around, and then remerged with the original and then faded. Since the sighting, the younger boy has had repeated dreams featuring large heads with no faces. Also, the boys did not arrive home until 10:45 p.m. after what should have been a 15-minute drive. The case is being investigated by MUFON. Just on a side note, the previous night, August 6th, the Sioux City Police Department received multiple reports of a Bigfoot on 17th Street in the city's north side section. Of course, this was reported in the Sioux City Journal for August 9th, 97. Also, from up on the north west of the state or the country, from Roseburg, Oregon, a UFO has been sighted there on Saturday, August 23rd at 1:30 p.m. 8 people, including an officer of the Oregon State Police, spied a daylight disk hovering over the Green District in Roseburg, Oregon. Roseburg is 178 miles south of Portland. The residents stood out on the street and watched a large silver disc floating directly overhead, reported Autumn Shepard and Bob Williams of Project Link. When one of the residents looked at the object through a scope, he could see colors moving around on the bottom of the disc, yellow, red, blue, and green. The object made small, rapid movements from side to side, but stayed directly overhead for approximately 30 minutes. The witnesses claimed that it looked like it was jumping back and forth. When the craft left, it streaked away at a very high rate of speed and faded out of sight. 2 weeks earlier, on August 11th, 2 hikers camping out near Red Butte, near Three Finger Jack in the Cascade Mountains, reported a UFO sighting at 3:30 a.m. One hiker saw a weird-looking bright star on the eastern horizon. He pointed it out to his friend. The light was greenish-red in color and eventually moved up, left, down, and then dipped below the horizon. He said that the light appeared to be 50 to 75 miles away, and he calculated it to be north of the city of Bend, Oregon, out in the desert. Now, on Sunday, August 31st, Autumn and Bob set up their own skywatch at Cottage Grove Lake, north of Roseburg. We chose a clearing that would offer a clear view of the night sky and the horizon and set up a tent. At exactly 8:59 p.m., a red light appeared 300 to 400 feet above the horizon to the west-southwest. Bob, my partner, looked at it through the binoculars. I turned the camcorder on, and it remained stationary and pulsed, changing colors from white to red and back again, then to blue, and finally to green, and finally it blinked out, and it was gone. That's it. Okay, we're going to go to break. When we come back, we'll introduce my guest tonight. And again, like I said, we have audio clips of an actual UFO, the sound it makes. Very interesting stuff. Stay tuned. 1-800-836-2009. I'm Michael Corbin. This is the ParaNet Continuum. We'll be right back.
If you believe that comet Hale-Bopp had a companion object, please go away. Otherwise, stay tuned for more of the ParaNet Continuum right after this.
We can rebuild it. We have the technology. We have the capability to make the world's best personal computer just for you. Better, stronger, faster than it was before. We have a stark ambition to make your computer everything you need it to be. You've had it in your dreams, now get it in your computer. Better monitors, stronger, bigger hard drives, faster processors and modems. You can have the technology the government can't cover up at prices far below what the Defense Department pays for a paperclip. Call Stark Ambition today at 303-809-0274 or visit our website at www.starknet.com. Call for the best prices on components, new systems, service and repair on single units and networks. On the information superhighway, it's better to travel with a nerd. So get yours today and put our Stark Ambition to work for you. Call Stark Ambition 303-809-0274 or see our price list on the web at www.starknet.com.
Are you sick and tired of the same old UFO magazines? ParaNet has the cure. Continuum. ParaNet's quarterly magazine is packed with stories you're not used to seeing in the other magazines. There's a regular series on the need to establish a first contact science, written by a psychologist on the alien abduction phenomenon. You'll find interviews with ParaNet's fascinating guests, late-breaking news from the worlds of science, ufology, and the paranormal, intriguing discussions from ParaNet's news groups on the Internet, and there's sighting reports, book reviews, and much more. A subscription to Continuum is only $18 for 4 quarterly issues. Call now to order Continuum at 1-800-UFO-NET-1. That's 1-800-836-6381. MasterCard and Visa accepted. Continuum, ParaNet's cure for the UFO blues. Call 1-800-836-6381 and order Continuum today.
You're listening to the ParaNet Continuum. Whether or not you believe in the paranormal, there's a lot on the subject you haven't heard. Stay tuned, keep an open mind, and call in. Once again, here's your host, Michael Corbin.
1-800-836-2009, 1-800-836-2009. That's our call-in number tonight, toll-free, of course. And we're going to be talking tonight with my guest, Greg Long. Now, Greg has appeared on this program in the past. A couple of years ago, we talked about his book concerning lights over the Indian reservations up in Washington State. And it's my pleasure to welcome back to the program tonight, Greg Long. Good evening, Greg. Greg, are you there? Hold on a second.
Be on your show again.
Thank you. Thanks for being with us. Greg, before we get started, give me a little bit of your background. I walked out of my house tonight without your biography.
Well, I've been studying and researching UFOs and related phenomena for 22 years. I became interested in 1975 and have kept at this thing for many, many years and have concentrated most recently on UFO sightings and other unusual things that have happened up here in the Pacific Northwest. I'm living up here in Washington State, and it's given me the opportunity to do a lot of research into primarily UFO sightings. You mentioned lights on an Indian reservation. That's specifically the Yakima Indian Reservation,
right,
which is near Yakima, Washington. And, of course, Yakima is well known for another historical event. That is Kenneth Arnold, who had seen 9 objects over the Cascade Mountains, had landed in Yakima to report initially his sighting of what became known as flying saucers. And flying saucers were, of course, born here in the Pacific Northwest. So I've concentrated on the Pacific Northwest. It's a place where things are happening all the time. A lot of unusual sightings are going on. The National UFO Reporting Center is in Seattle. Mm-hmm. And there's something unusual and unique about the Northwest. And so I've sort of concentrated on things happening up here.
Well, that's very interesting because I know, too, we're going to give out your web address tonight, but your web page, which explores the Northwest mysteries, I must say is one of the better web pages I've ever seen on the subject of UFOs. It's a very it gives a very serious treatment to the subject, and it's very informative.
Well, thank you very much. You know, the website I have has been online for about a year and a half, and what I'm trying to do is post reports and stories every 2 weeks about investigations and my findings here in the Northwest. And there's no end of the kinds of things I'm uncovering here, and I hope we can talk about some of those things tonight. Graphically, though, I think the website is very appealing. People will find it visually interesting as well as simply informative.
Okay. Now, before we go on to the subject at hand, I've got a caller calling in who heard me reading a report at the top of the hour. We do a little thing from UFO Roundup, and one of the stories was a UFO that was sighted in and near Roseburg, Oregon, which is kind of up in your neck of the woods. So let's take that call. The person's name is Kelly from Nampa, Idaho, listening on our affiliate KIDO. Good evening, Kelly.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. I just got really interested when you mentioned that because I remembered some sightings that I'd had in 1984 when I was 18 in the Convoy Lake Wildlife Refuge area. Do you know where that is?
I don't. Do you know where that's at, Greg?
No.
You know where Whitefish is?
This is down in southern Oregon?
Yeah, it's 20 miles north of there.
Not specifically. I've spent a lot of time looking into sightings more in central Oregon, but I know that southern Oregon has had its share of UFO sightings. You're saying this happened in 1984?
Yes, and that same summer I saw some things in Camp Sherman, which is close to Bend.
That's one of these...
That would be more in the eastern part of the state of Oregon, yes.
Yeah.
Kelly, tell us your story.
Okay, well, it's kind of embarrassing, and so I don't talk very well when I'm embarrassed.
You don't... Just relax.
When I was 18, and I was with my brother on this trip because I felt very strongly like we were going to see some things. I just had to go to this place. And about between 1 and 3 o'clock in the morning, I had 3 sightings. The first one was of a small white object going across in the sky over my head, and I wanted to test to see if it was a satellite or if it was a UFO, and so I flashed my flashlight at it, and it flashed back at me, and so I knew it wasn't just a satellite. And then later on, about half an hour later, I saw another one on the horizon above the tree line across the meadow from where we were, and this one was going really slow sideways, and then it turned, and then it looked like kind of like a foghorn-shaped thing with multicolored lights. And then we decided to go because it was getting cold, and so about 5 miles out, there was nobody else around. We didn't even pass any other cars. And we approached this meadow with a hill on the left side of us, and I saw what I thought at first were house lights in the trees, but there was no houses there because I went back in the daytime, and there was absolutely nothing there. And
is this a pretty remote area?
Yes, it's very, very remote. And it's about 20 miles outside Stevenson, I think it's called. And Whitefish is below that. But I think there's another town called Hewsum there, and that's probably about 15 miles from where we were. But anyway, I looked over to see what was causing the lights, and they lifted up and became one solid window. I mean, this was like a barrette held at arm's length. It was really close. We were only probably 100 feet from this hill. And I could even see, I could have sworn I saw the outline of a wall inside the window, and it was white-blue. Mm-hmm. And then we went around the corner, it settled back among the trees again. And so, and then I had a daylight sighting at Camp Sherman as we were coming out. This kind of kept pace with our car, and it was silvery and round, and it kept dipping down, up and down in the trees and following the car. This lasted about 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And I saw that one very clearly.
What do you think they are, Kelly?
Well, I think that they're UFOs. I mean, I think that they're physical beings from other planets. Mm-hmm. And I've had other experiences to attest to that. I mean, this is just some sightings that I've had, but actually I've written my stories in a book that I've written, and I've sold it to some people, but I haven't sold it commercially. So...
Well, Kelly, I want to thank you for calling in. It's a very interesting story.
Yeah, thanks for letting me talk.
No problem. Keep listening.
If anybody else has seen any things, I'd like to hear from you, on the radio.
Okay.
In that area, so.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kelly.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, Greg, that's an interesting story.
Yeah, it is. Oregon and Washington State are filled with, large tracts of forested land, U.S. Forest Service land, desolate, remote areas. I'm not surprised that she saw these things in this particular area because much of the Northwest is still mostly unsettled. For example, Oregon only has a population of probably 2.5 million, and most of those people are situated in Portland on the Columbia River, and all the rest of them are scattered around in rural areas. And so it's not surprising to me that she would see something out in such an area as that.
You sound like, just from your book about the lights around the Indian reservation, which I found extremely fascinating as well, it sounds like you're really situated in a good place for this kind of stuff.
Well, that's true. I don't know why Yakima is the way that it is, but it is an Indian reservation, and I'm trying to play with some theories as to why there would be so many UFO sightings in the Yakima area, and one of them may be related to the culture of the Indians there. The Indians that I've talked to are very open-minded about the possibility of the existence of other intelligences and other worlds, and in fact, it's a natural part of their universe. And so the Indians who live on this reservation take these things for granted. And the reservation itself is really rather large. It's 1.25 million acres of land, and it stretches over vast amounts of very desolate, rugged terrain in which non-Indians are not able to get access to those areas because they are controlled by the Indians. And there's a high unemployment rate among the Indians there, and what that really points to is that development is not very heavy on the Indian lands there. It's a place that some people don't frequent very much. Unfortunately, the Indians have been shunned and driven onto this reservation as a result of course, terrible historical events that we all know about.
Sure.
So these are isolated areas where things like this can freely operate.
Okay, well, when we come back from break, we're going to go to break now. When we come back from break, we want to find out what was that light and sound over the Columbia River around St. Helens, Oregon in 1981. We're going to talk about that and a lot more with my guest, Greg Long. Stay tuned, 1-800-836-2009. I'm Michael Corbin. This is the ParaNet Continuum.
Get ready to copy down some computer addresses. I'm going to tell you how you can plug into the oldest and most reliable news and information service on UFOs and the paranormal on the entire planet. It's the ParaNet Information Services Worldwide Network. First of all, check out our page on the World Wide Web. It provides you hot links to other UFO and paranormal sites, along with audio clips from recent ParaNet radio shows and much more. Type in www.paranet.org/paranet/. If you're a subscriber to America Online, CompuServe, or the Microsoft Network, you can access the 7 ParaNet news groups covering UFOs, metaphysics, parapsychology, and more. Just select the Internet News Group function from your online service and search for ParaNet. You can also send us email at this address, paranet@paranet.org. So, don't accept wannabes and substitutes. The name is ParaNet, the world's most important communications network.
Who says you can't get something for nothing? The ParaNet catalog contains detailed descriptions of all of the ParaNet radio shows produced since April of 1994 and shows you how you can order them on audio cassette for as little as $5 each. Are you on the World Wide Web? You can join ParaNet and get access to over 30 megabytes of text files and pictures, as well as real audio access to all of our past radio shows. Members also receive a subscription to Continuum, ParaNet's quarterly magazine. The catalog shows you how to join. The ParaNet catalog also has special book offers, t-shirts and sweatshirts with alien and outer space themes, and much more. And the catalog is yours free. Call now 1-800-UFO-NET1. That's 1-800-836-6381 for your free copy of the ParaNet catalog. That's 1-800-836-6381.
mysteries of the paranormal, UFOs, future science, parapsychology, angelic phenomena, ghosts, secret projects, government cover-ups, hoaxes, and frauds. We cover it all on the ParaNet Continuum. Now back to your host, Michael Corbin.
And once again, the number to call tonight is 1-800-836-2009, 1-800-836-2009. You want to speak to my guest, Greg Long. Greg, now let's set up this audio clip we're going to hear. There's actually two pieces to this. What took place on March 17th, 1981 in St. Helens, Oregon?
Well, on that date, a police officer named Russell Yoakum was making his way up Highway 30, which runs along the Columbia River on the Oregon side of the river. If you know your geography, the Columbia River cuts right between both Oregon and Washington and heads out toward the Pacific Ocean. In any event, Yoakum was traveling up Highway 30 when he saw to his right or to the east a very bright white light which was above the Columbia River and moving slowly toward the east, which would be in the general direction of the Portland Airport. He ended up in St. Helens, Oregon, a small community. It's a little mill town there, and he notified two other officers who joined him, and they looked out over the Columbia River and saw this light, which at first they thought was bobbing, but later determined that they were looking actually in the wrong direction because they picked up some radio traffic from a man named Askins, who was a CB operator on the other side of the river in Ridgefield, Washington, who was seeing a strange light. And these officers then turned in the right direction and saw this large orangish red sphere of light, which was about 80 feet above the Columbia River. This thing was hovering and making a strange sound, and they set up a tape recorder in one of the police cars and managed to actually tape the sound of this object, which was the sound itself was transmitted from Askin's own CB microphone across the Columbia, over the radio waves to the police car. They picked it up on their tape recorder and taped it.
Okay, now let's play the first segment. The first segment is called Looking at the Light. Now this is where they actually are watching this light, and then after that we'll go to the second segment, which is the actual sound.
Right.
Okay.
You're lucky. We got a tape recorder sitting here by a radio whenever you're ready. We'll keep her running. If it starts up again, you key up and then record a little bit of it. Just didn't want you to think we all have a screw loose. Down, water. All go to bed. TS, all it is now is just an orange glow. That's all I can see. That's all you can see from that? You guys still watching on the other side of the river there? Yes, sir. Just an orange glow. Where did it go to? Up to the river or what? Because the sun is coming up. Better not be. It's awful early. Awful early for the sun paper, Joe. I don't think the sun would just be in that one spot. I'm at the glow that we can see now. It looks like the breaking of the sun. Oh, yeah, right. Okay, I'm going to be 10-7. I'm going into Jay's here. Chicken. That old one chicken is just smart. The latter, you're probably a lot smarter than we are here, kid. Okay, we'll catch you later.
Okay, now the what you just heard is a transcript, or I'm sorry, a conversation taking place between apparently a police officer and the CB operator, and they're describing it as it's just an orange glow. That's all they can see, and the other one says it's like the sun is just coming up. So this is kind of what we're seeing, or what they're seeing on the scene out there. Correct, Greg?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, now let's go to the next segment. The next segment is the actual sound. What I'm going to do is we're going to play this one thing through. Then I want you to describe for us after we hear it what it is that we just heard, and then we're going to play it one more time. Okay?
I think it's moving out, you guys. I want to watch it. We moved up to a higher vantage point, so you tell us what it does. And listen. Sounds like it's revving up its engines. Can you hear it? I hope. 'Cause it's sure cold out here. Taping this, you guys. Yes, we are. Sounds like to me a power plant diesel motor and a screeching noise in between it there, with it. Okay, yeah, we're listening. 4:29 a.m. Just for the record.
Okay, now again, this is Greg. Now, where that sound kind of like something out of Outer Limits or something? Is that the actual sound of the UFO?
Yeah, that's the actual sound. What you're hearing is something that sounds similar to a turbine. Sort of, they say it's revving its engines up, and it seems to be increasing in its frequency. If you listen to it over and over, it definitely sounds like a dynamo or a turbine
right.
sound. Now, one of the officers says that he heard a screeching noise in there, and it's not clear to me when I hear it, the screeching noise, but indeed there is a rather sustained sequence of sound there, which that piece of tape was analyzed by the Center for UFO Studies. They could not understand what it was. They analyzed it both running it forwards and backwards, and what they found was running it backwards, it sounded just like it did running it forwards.
Okay.
So they don't understand what it is. It's a really rare piece of audio documentation of apparently a real UFO.
I can barely, when I listen to it myself, and I don't know how much of this actually makes it over the air, but there's two sounds, kind of a doot, doot, like that. Is that one of the sounds that they're talking about?
Well, I think that's right. You know, I don't have access to the actual, analytical data that QFOS has on that sound, but there seems to be two pieces to it. What strikes me the most is this rather lengthy piece in which it sounds like a turbine is increasing in its frequency.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's what they were, of course, talking about.
Okay, now we're going to go to break, but we'll play this on the way out of this segment, and when we come back, we'll take our calls. We've got Mary and Tom on the line, so stand by on that, and when we come back, we'll get into this a little bit more. Greg, go ahead and roll that spot going out to break, okay? We'll hear this one more time.
I think it's moving out, you guys. I want to watch it. We moved up to a higher vantage point, so you tell us what it does. Listen. Sounds like it's revving up its engines. Can you hear it? I hope. 'Cause it's sure cold out here. I hope you're taping this, you guys. Yes, we are. Sounds like to me a power plant diesel motor and a screeching noise in between it there, with it. Okay, yeah, we're listening. 4:29 a.m. Just for the record.
Are you sick and tired of the same old UFO magazines? ParaNet has the cure. Continuum. ParaNet's quarterly magazine is packed with stories you're not used to seeing in the other magazines. There's a regular series on the need to establish a first contact science, written by a psychologist on the alien abduction phenomenon. You'll find interviews with ParaNet's fascinating guests, late-breaking news from the worlds of science, ufology, and the paranormal, intriguing discussions from ParaNet's news groups on the internet, And there's sighting reports, book reviews, and much more. A subscription to Continuum is only $18 for 4 quarterly issues. Call now to order Continuum at 1-800-UFO-NET-1. That's 1-800-836-6381. MasterCard and Visa accepted. Continuum, ParaNet's cure for the UFO blues. Call 1-800-836-6381 and order Continuum today.
We can rebuild it. We have the technology. We have the capability to make the world's best personal computer just for you. Better, stronger, faster than it was before. We have a stark ambition to make your computer everything you need it to be. You've had it in your dreams, now get it in your computer. Better monitors, stronger, bigger hard drives, faster processors and modems. You can have the technology the government can't cover up at prices far below what the Defense Department pays for a paperclip. Call Stark Ambition today at 303-809-0274 or visit our website at www.starknet.com. Call for the best prices on components, new systems, service and repair on single units and networks. On the information superhighway, it's better to travel with a nerd. So get yours today and put our Stark Ambition to work for you. Call Stark Ambition 303-809-0274 or see our price list on the web at www.starknet.com.
This is the ParaNet Continuum, where we answer questions and question answers. And we want to know what you think. Call us and stay tuned. Now back to your host, the Director of ParaNet Information Services, Michael Corbin.
1-800-836-2009, 1-800-836-2009. And I want to first of all thank the J. Allen Hynek Center for UFO Studies and Greg Long for providing those audio clips. And Greg, thank you very much for that. It was fascinating.
Yeah, it certainly is. The reason why I'm really interested in that is because not only the sound, which is unusual, but what they saw, which was this orangish-red glow or ball or sphere. Some of the officers, when they were interviewed, described what they saw as being a sphere. And we've mentioned lights at Yakima, and the predominant light that is seen at Yakima is of a perfectly round, glowing, orangish-red or red, sometimes white, ball of light. And that seems to be a very consistent theme in UFO sightings. I've always been intrigued by that. Mm-hmm. I continue to pursue balls of light at Yakima. Recently there was a sighting there in Yakima this past January 22nd of a ball of light moving at extreme speed right across the reservation just south of a Tandem Ridge at an elevation of probably 300 or 400 feet. The witness had stepped outside to warm up his truck and preparing to go to work, and happened to catch this light out of the corner of his left eye, looked up and saw this perfectly round orange ball of light with a long white tail just streaking right in front of a Tandem Ridge, heading toward the east. And he ran to his house, alerted his wife, who came outside in her bare feet and stood in the snow there. There had been snow on the ground, and they both watched it. At this point, it was further east down toward the far end of a Tandem Ridge, and it just vanished out of sight, leaving this long white trail. Now, one would think that might have been a meteor or a bow light because of the tail. So what I did is I called the Yakima police, the county sheriff's department, and also the tribal police there on the Indian reservation, and not one of them had a report of any kind of unusual light on the morning of January 22nd. Typically when bolides or meteors are seen traveling over large regions, there are literally hundreds of phone calls that flood into police
People see them.
stations, and they see them. And
Yeah.
in this case, no one reported it, no one but this one single witness. And he had seen lights before. And in fact, he has videotaped balls of light on the reservation. In fact, he videotaped them the preceding year, March 16th, 1996. He had been coming home late in the morning around 2:30. He had worked the night shift as a sheet metal worker, and as he was driving home in his truck, he saw 4 perfectly round balls of light, which were orange, fading to white and then fading back to orange, which were gliding above the ground about 20 or 30 feet. They moved behind his house. He pulled into his driveway, jumped out, saw that they were now positioned behind a grove of trees behind his house, ran inside, tried to wake his wife up. She was still asleep and was sleepy-eyed and wouldn't get up. So he ran outside with a video camera, stood on top of a boat, which was positioned on top of blocks, and managed to see these lights now that he was higher up behind this grove of trees, and he ended up taking 12 minutes of videotape of these balls of light, which were sitting there fading in and out from orange to white and back. Finally, he got frightened because he couldn't see them in the viewfinder. He saw several of them in the viewfinder, 2 of them, but he didn't see the other 2. So he ran in to get his wife, managed to get her up, brought her outside, and the balls of light were gone. But that videotape piece is a very valuable piece of information. It's the first videotape that I know of lights at Yakima. But as I said, he later saw this ball of light on January 22nd streaking right across the reservation, and only he and his wife apparently saw it. No one else reported it.
Very interesting. Let's go to take a call. We've got Mary calling in from our affiliate in Boise, Idaho, KIDO. Good evening, Mary, and thanks for being on hold so long.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for being patient, I should say.
Well, thank you. I don't know if what I have to say is of any value to anybody except me. If anybody has some insight on it, I would really appreciate it. This was several years ago. My daughters, actually, we were talking to some people, and we were all talking, and they were talking about UFOs, and I just happened to mention that I'd never seen one. I wish I could. And then my daughter surprised me by informing me that I had seen one, and they proceeded to describe the evening, and as they were describing it, I remembered. But the funny part is I can remember all of it. I can remember when they called me outside, and we were in our backyard. It was like a summer night, and I remember looking up, but I cannot remember what it looks like. The ship, I guess I pointed out things about it, and we were all really excited, and I pointed at it, and I said this and that and the other. But after that, it's like it was erased from my memory.
Why do you think that is?
I don't have the vaguest idea. And now I remember going outside. I remember looking up. But to save my life, I cannot describe to you what it is I saw.
Is that the only time you've ever seen one?
I guess. I don't know.
What do you think they are, Mary?
I'm one of those that believes that it would be pretty vain of us to think that we're the only ones here. So I do believe that there are other people living out there. God made this universe way too big to be inhabited by only us.
You bet. Well, listen, thank you very much for your call.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, Greg, let's take another call real quick. We've got Tom calling in from our Denver affiliate, 1280 Ralph. Good evening, Tom.
Yeah, hi, Mike. Hi, Greg. Say, Mike, real quick, what do the Indians there think of UFOs? And do they relate UFOs to Bigfoot?
Well, they do, although I can't say that I can quote an Indian who has said that a ball of light is a Bigfoot creature. But in talking to Indians about UFOs and Bigfoot, they seem to go hand in hand in the respect that I've heard them say, well, when the lights are about, Bigfoot is. Or the lights are the stick Indians. There's a myth about, if it is a myth, or stories about stick Indians, which are supposed to be invisible creatures that play pranks on people who are out in the woods camping and fishing, sleeping out there at night, and often things will happen during the night, and these are ascribed to being the stick Indians.
Well, do their legends perceive these things as to be some form of evil, say? Or,
Well, I haven't had
demonic type.
I haven't ever had an Indian tell me that UFOs or Bigfoot are evil. They really describe their experiences just honestly and forthrightly and give you the details. I ended up interviewing an Indian woman for 2 sessions, a total of about 8 hours, about a UFO sighting she had, and she never used the word UFO or flying saucer or aliens during those 8 hours. And so the Indians tend to simply have these experiences and describe them to me. In some cases, the experiences have been frightening to them, and I guess if I got down and talked to them further and got to know them better, they might say they were evil. But I've never had a Yakima Indian tell me that UFOs are evil.
Tom, that's it. We got to go. We got to go to break. Thank you very much for your call. Okay, Greg, hold on. We'll get back to some more of this interesting stuff about the Northwest mysteries after this. 1-800-836-2009. I'm Michael Corbin. This is the ParaNet Continuum. Get ready to copy down some computer addresses. I'm going to tell you how you can plug into the oldest and most reliable news and information service on UFOs and the paranormal on the entire planet. It's the ParaNet Information Services Worldwide Network. First of all, check out our page on the World Wide Web. It provides you hot links to other UFO and paranormal sites, along with audio clips from recent ParaNet radio shows and much more. Type in www.paranet.org/paranet/. If you're a subscriber to America Online, CompuServe, or the Microsoft Network, you can access the 7 ParaNet news groups covering UFOs, metaphysics, parapsychology, and more. Just select the Internet News Group function from your online service and search for ParaNet. You can also send us email at this address, paranet@paranet.org. So, don't accept wannabes and substitutes. The name is ParaNet, the world's most important communications network.
Pilots depend on accurate, timely information, both in the cockpit and on the ground. Skyway Publications helps with both. The Skyway Airport Directory and Entertainment Guide provides convenient, accurate information for safe flight and landing operations, as well as local businesses that cater to pilots. These are free, pocket-sized guides with information on large and small airports nationwide, along with technical information, fuel and airport services, and businesses that can make life easier for pilots. Keep in mind, it's free. Check your local airport for the Skyway Publications Airport Directory and Entertainment Guide, or call area 970-669-1800. Call Skyway today and find out how the guide can also be a financial opportunity for you. Skyway Publications, your ticket to safer, cheaper, and more convenient flight. Check your local airport or call Skyway at 970-669-1800.
Are UFOs for real, or are they just fiction, or imagination, or disinformation? To find out, stay tuned for more of the ParaNet Continuum with your host, Michael Corbin.
Returning from Washington State is my guest tonight, Greg Long, who's a UFO investigator. Many interesting cases that he's investigating up there. Greg, in the remaining moments of the program for our national audience, discuss with me the book that you're working on now and when it's going to be out.
Well, right now I'm ghostwriting a book on Kenneth Arnold. Of course, Kenneth Arnold is the man who saw 9 objects over the Cascade Mountains on June 24th, 1947, the date of the inception of the modern era of UFO sightings. And this book is almost completed in terms of the manuscript. Haven't got a publisher yet, but that soon will probably be changing. As I said, I'm ghostwriting. That means I'm actually telling the story of this man for the first time based upon information from one of his daughters, Kim Arnold, and a mass of information that Kenneth Arnold himself had collected right after his own sighting. He became a UFO investigator himself for 3 years, spent tremendous amounts of time and his own money trying to understand what he had seen and what other people were seeing. So this book will be the first real story about Kenneth Arnold, not just his sighting, which we all know about, but what happened after the sighting, how he dealt with the sighting, and his celebrityhood and his claim to fame the rest of his life. So it's a really, I think, interesting story.
It had a profound effect on him, didn't it?
It had a tremendous effect on him. His life was never the same after what he had seen. It was something he had never asked for, and is something that became a burden to him the rest of his life. And I had interviewed him in 1981, shortly before he died, and had learned a lot about his feelings and the kind of bitterness that he had begun experiencing as the newspapers began to hound him and question him and viewed him as being a nut. And he had to deal with this thing the rest of his life. He was the man who had started it all. He was the man who coined the term flying saucer.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a full book-length treatment of Kenneth Arnold, information in there that has never been made public before. It really is a history of his life. I've managed to go through all of his files and basically follow his life in terms of ufology day by day, year by year, until his death. So I think it's going to really interest the public.
Real quick, in about 15 seconds, give out your URL for your webpage.
My webpage can be found at www.pacificharbor, Pacific as in Pacific Ocean, pacificharbor.com /NW for Northwest, MYST for Mysteries. So it's pacificharbor.com /NWMYST, and every 2 weeks I have a story on there.
Okay, Greg, thank you very much. Stay tuned, my Denver listeners, for this second hour. We've got another hour coming up with Greg Long. Thank you, Greg. That's it for me. Keep your eyes on the skies. I'm Michael Corbin. Good night.